And that's only possible if you offer the client something else. The sensorial experience. It needs to be unique. It needs to reflect the work of people, the life, the culture. It can't be a simple beverage. It can't be something without soul. If at some point they start making a specialty coffee in the labs, because at some point somebody might be able to join the right molecules to each other in the right way at the right temperature and right everything, but it will still not have soul.
Hi, everybody. I'm David Paparelli, co-founder of M-Cultivo, and welcome back to the Cupping Table podcast, where the best coffee producers and buyers share their stories, insights, and outlook on the specialty coffee space. Our guest today is José Gallardo, known to his friends and pretty much everybody else in the world as Pocho. He is the visionary behind Finca Nuguo, a farm located at the extreme limits in Panama. And Pocho has used his background as an engineer to master the Geisha variety. He's won the Best of Panama, I think 3 times, and setting new standards for high altitude production. His work builds on the Gallardo family's coffee legacy, which we're going to talk about today. And this work has captured the imagination of the world's best cuppers, roasters, and coffee buyers all over the world. So Pocho, just welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, David, for inviting me to talk about coffee. I'm very glad that we can do this for our clients and all coffee lovers to have interaction. It's harder to do it one way, like not having everyone in front of each other, but at least we can send the message and at some point visit some countries and share with real life persons. In the meantime, we do what we can. We send the coffee as well prepared as we can, and we can talk via internet.
Well, I think, the purpose of these podcasts, which I appreciate you joining us on, is kind of a journey with producers to be able to tell their side of the story, right? Talk about their coffee. And I know you've got a lot to tell, but we have a tradition here where we start these podcasts with the same question, which is, what is the best cup of coffee that you've had recently?
I didn't come prepared, but I will be honest. I this year it's easier. It's easier to answer. It might not be a politically correct answer, but I am honest. I need to be. So it's Nido. It's definitely Nido. The first place of BOP, the wash one. The natural is good. Don't get me wrong, but the wash, it's the best coffee I have had ever. Not recently, but ever.
You would have thought that other people would have said that as the best cup of coffee they had over the last, 3-4 months since that.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's been 6 months now, right? Roughly since all the cuppings happened for Best of Panama.
Yeah,
But I don't think most people just choose their own farm.
No,
most people just choose their own coffee.
My previous favorite was Sofia, and my favorite espresso is Cenizos. So I'm pretty dispersed. Yeah, I have the pleasure and the benefit of being able to try all these good coffees. So, for example, sometimes Cenizos have a really good one, and you wanna show it, and sometimes I'm able to join and copy it. Sometimes the lots are very small to be sold or put into an auction. So we like living here and having networks with other producers. We are able to try like really good coffees. Like not
Yeah.
from now, but since ever. When I started in specialty was 2014, and like 3 weeks after I decided to get into this like seriously, I was copying at Elida, like like in,
Mm.
together with Wilford, like copying like real Elida lots, like choosing their lots for clients and so on. With only like 3 weeks in the specialty group. We have been in coffee since I was born. My father already was in coffee, but not in specialty. So it's a great community to be in because you have access to information and to training and so many things. Yeah.
It does seem like in Panama, you guys have developed, the community has developed, in other words, this kind of strong idea of it's not, it's kind of, it seems like it goes beyond mentorship and kind of moves into almost apprenticeship. And I haven't seen that. I mean, you see that in other coffee communities, but not the entire community coming together to provide those kind of apprenticeship opportunities or mentorship opportunities. Do you find that to be unique in Boquete, or have you seen that in other places around the world?
I haven't traveled too much to producing countries. I have only been Costa Rica and Nicaragua. Um, but but the visitors they told me that this is not common. It's quite unique, and it's not magic. It's not a fair story. We have difficulties, internal difficulties. We disagree a lot. We have groups. We sometimes feel more into working with some people than others, and so on. But there is still the opportunity to join many of them. So it's like a very fertile area for learning. You can learn from some or learn from others, and they will have different ideas. But the doors, I feel that the doors are open. I don't know if everyone will agree with me on that. Some people might say no, everyone is very close to their ideas and they don't show anything. If you ask some other producers, they might have a different opinion and they might say, "Oh, where is Pocho living? I don't see that happening here." But that's my experience. I need to be very thankful to Lamastus, to Ruiz. She taught me how to formally cop at the very beginning. To Harmans, they trained me for. We are neighbors, kind of. So it was easier to go there at the beginning. And in the line to so many Jansons, Willem Booth, so many very knowledgeable people into coffee here that you can learn from.
Well, I think it's a beautiful passing of kind of knowledge experience to, another generation of coffee producer where, Willem Boot, Wilfred Lamassa, these are, now some of the best producers in the world, the Hartmans, some of the best producers in the world, right? They had to learn it from someone as well, right? And I would guess they'd want that to continue. What I think is unique about Panama, and I don't know if this is a feature of the community there or if it was actually kind of created because of the type of community that Panama is. But the best of Panama has sort of taken on a life, and you're on the board of SCAP, is that right, Pocho?
No, not anymore. I used to be like for 4 years or so, and then it's very hardworking, and I also have an attraction for numbers like statistics and uh, doing things with the numbers of BOP. So I was having that and the board, and I decided to focus on a committee. Many of them they still do. They are in committees and in the board, but it's a lot of work. So
Yeah, but
to
you're
touch a point related to this, some people sometimes say, "Oh yeah, but this person he's always trying to do this and that in SCAP." Yeah, but that person works the hell out of their life into SCAP. It's not going to a single meeting and saying, my opinion is this and we need to do that. No, there is many hours of work behind those decisions.
right. Yeah, and there's something to be respected there. But do you feel that SCAP was kind of a product of the community that already existed? And the best of Panama as well, I would put in there. Or do you feel like the Best of Panama and SCAP sort of created the community that now exists in Panama, this sort of kind of
It,
apprenticeship, mentorship, passing of knowledge idea.
I was thinking that it was hard to say, but now I'm sure it's not hard to say because my grandfather he learned from Tedman, like the I think it's the grandfather of Hunter or grand grandfather. I'm not sure exactly how many lines of generation, but yes, my grandfather learned from him in the 60s, way before SCAP existed. Now, to make it sustainable for 6 decades at least, because I know there are other cases that are older in those apprenticeship, there need to be a special ingredient. I I I think it's beneficial in all senses, in the academic sense, a little bit, in the practical sense, in the economic sense, in the social sense. So especially in the economic, it makes very attractive to keep doing it because if something leads you to being not profitable, at some point you will not do it unless you have some profit from other place and you make it as a hobby or something like that. But it works in all those senses. So I think every town or country should try to do that, should put their personal opinions in the place there should be. We need to have personal opinions to make grow because we need to have diversity of ideas to grow. But we need to share those ideas in the correct way so that the better ideas keep growing. At some point, we won't know which one is the better, but time will show. So I think it's not unique. Now, the success of Panama in coffee definitely needs to be related to the terroir. Doing what we are doing in other country, we will have had different results. I'm almost sure of that. I have no evidence, but terroir helps us being able to live this dream of being coffee growers and being sustainable economically and environmentally and socially, as I told you before. Yeah.
I think you're right. I mean, for those of you, and you kind of are, your family is certainly a part of this legacy in Panama, but being born into a coffee farm and choosing to be a part of, having the luxury of choice to
Mhm,
be a
mhm,
coffee producer is
mhm.
is a completely different thing. And it seems like in Panama, no new generation would choose to be a part of coffee if what had been built in the past wasn't successful, at least marginally, right? You would have
Exactly.
to. So I would guess that the best of Panama and what Scap's been demonstrated, the potential of terroir in Panama has actually attracted new coffee producers, a younger generation to come, give it a try, to learn, to get obsessed with all of those things. Are you seeing a generation younger than you starting to get interested in Panamanian coffee as a result of all that work?
Yeah, yeah, totally. I can think about Gregorio Philly's sons, and they like coffee. I don't know if I will see them into a pickup truck, holding coffee and selling it. But so far so good. I see that they kind of like roasting and cupping and so on. Santa Maria, the younger sons are still very young and they are into coffee. And some others are like 20 somethings and they are already working hard in some other families. So yeah, as young as they can, they are getting into coffee.
Yeah, in other areas of the world, I mean, the big concern is that coffee will die off because the younger generation is moving into the city, right? Nobody wants to work on a farm anymore. And I'm not sure, I think some of that could be short-sighted because we were talking before the podcast, and there's something beautiful about being out on a farm, out on land. There's something so kind of raw and real about it when we live in such a digital world. And so I've been wondering if you're starting to see that turn? I mean, are young people starting to kind of migrate and get more interested in the real, the tangible, the farm, the life of kind of a coffee producer versus, this obsession with I need to move to Panama City and, get a job as a banker?
I don't know if, again, I am biased and I'm trying to see the special cases that when that's happening, but I can see cases where people that have big opportunities in the city are staying in the coffee growing, not only in the industry but in the farm. Like Victoria Coiner, she is here working with his father and his brother. It's also in the farm. And in the Peterson family, you can see cases also. They are working into coffee, and some of them are actually in the farm. So it's happening. Um, it's harder when you talk about coffee, and especially if you're talking to a producer. You need to be careful that if you have been successful, you need to make clear to the listener, to the producer, that he needs to try different things into his case, into his environment, his country, everything changes. So it's not a single recipe. For example, here in Panama, if you have 3 hectares and you are at 1,000 meters altitude, please do have a different um, income source. Stay into coffee, but that hectare w- won't be enoughly attractive for you to have a, a a successful life and to love coffee without another source of incomes. It's not enough. Yeah, the numbers doesn't match. One person,
Mm.
uh, this is the key. Every person that works of coffee under my supervision, I need to have 3 hectares so that I can sustain one person. That's the minimum number at 1,000 meters. Now, if you are at 2,050 meters, you can have, I don't know, 100 trees. Per hectare, you can plant 2,000. So if you have a 20th of a hectare at 2,050, and you have money to support the activity for a couple of decades or, or like 5 years or 6 years or 10 years or something like that, you can make a living and you can love coffee because coffee is giving you support, economical support. Because at the end, we need that every day. We need to eat. We need to be sure that we can get a health assistance, like go to the doctor and so on, education, and why not pleasure? I don't know, all the needs. So coffee growers, to be comfortable with the activity, they need to know that they have economic support. So it's easy to be already in a family that has created a good strategy to have economic support. But we need to remember how we came here. Like, there is a background that you cannot escape. Another example, not using fungicide, insecticide, etc. That's easy to say, and that's beautiful to do. And I do. I do in 36 hectares of commercial coffee and at 1,100 meters. But when I started doing that, the coffee went down. The plants were sad and sick. And my father was like, "What are you doing? You are losing all the work of this year." I was like, "We need to try. We need to figure out if this can work." Of course, we use products, but microorganisms and those things, but not chemically formulated substances, fungicides and insecticides. Next year, it was worst. At the third year, I started seeing that it was coming back. Now we have 6.5, almost 7 years, and it's stable. It looks nice, but it produces less. It's is economically sustainable because of the prices that we can get in the market. Before, like in the early 20s, It was because of the name of Panama. Nowadays, it's global. Like the sea market is high. So nowadays you can do that. Um, but you can't jump from traditional methods to to very sustainable methods without the economic support.
I mean, there's a whole environmental aspect to growing coffee where it sounds like it would take a heavier investment to grow something, to create something completely sustainable and organic, just because you would need a lot more agricultural inputs to get a similar output, right? Whereas if you use, fungicides, herbicides, all the sides, and
Mm.
you might be able to increase your yield in the short term while sacrificing kind of your soil health and maybe the health of your farm and your plants in the long term, right?
Right.
And so you just need a heavier investment. I would be curious, if you could go back. I mean, you're kind of touching on this already, but if you could go back to when you were starting your coffee career, right? And
Mm.
you were able to tell yourself kind of, here are the ingredients of what it will take to be a successful coffee producer in Panama. What would you say those ingredients are?
Nowadays I can, but back then I couldn't. Actually, I started taking care of Nuguo, which was my father's farm in Hurutungo area. We didn't have a name for that because he said, okay, everyone needs to start getting taking care of a farm. I'm not gonna take care of everything anymore. So I was like, I want Hurutungo. I meant the farm that was in Hurutungo because I love the area. I grew up seeing my father visiting that area, sharing time with him in the mud, in the cars, carrying sacks and so on. And I don't know, it's in my heart. So he said, well, that one is hard because the road is difficult, but yeah, go on. I was like, okay, if coffee doesn't make sense, I can do tourism or potatoes or strawberries or something, but I want to have an excuse to visit the area. And this is the perfect. I won't have that as a hobby because it's too expensive hobby to visit Hodutungo every week.
Yeah.
But as a job, I can. So I needed to make it work. So that's why I started visiting producers of a specialty because I realized if I sell this coffee at commercial price, that's insane. Like it's super expensive to produce there. I will be losing lots and lots of money every year. So I needed to see how was people doing that, how they were making sense of having high altitude coffee. And from them, there is just learning and learning and learning. The market helps. We can't give enough thanks to the market for the appreciation of coffee because coffee can be as good as it is. But if humans didn't have a sense of smell and taste, nobody would pay as much money for the gauge, you know? Or if the senses of the clients would still be into other into robusta, let's say, which has the advantages of being easier to produce and have more caffeine and other things, but it's different taste than geisha. If the market will choose robusta instead of geisha, we won't be able to produce geisha in Panama. At least not normal people. Like it's too expensive to be putting money into a farm that you won't be able to get back. Having all those aspects into consideration um, is is key for the producer. Even if it's new producer or very old producer, if I talk to some of them and they don't realize the complexity of this industry, I start by telling them, okay, first you need to be able to produce, to have the farm, the trees needs to be alive. That most of them they got it done. But second, you need to understand your product. So in short terms, is copying. Many of them doesn't copy. And so, for example, Wilford said a coffee grower that doesn't copy is like a librarian that doesn't read. It's not a good idea. So you need to copy. After that, you need to promote your coffee in some way, and that's hard for me. On the copying, it's easy for me. On the growing is kind of okay. In the promotion, it's difficult because if any of my clients it think, they know that I'm not very good selling. I sell Nuguo because Nuguo is very good, not because Pocho can sell coffee. If you put me into a lower elevation farm, I will be broken. Well, at 1,000 is easier because the price doesn't depend too much on the marketing or on the cup. It's just coffee. But when you are in the mid elevations, like 14, 15, 16, you need to be able to get the best out of the cherries, the very, very best, and to convince the client that they should buy your coffee and not your neighbors. When I'm in Nugo, it's easy because it's really good. And if there is a lot that is not too good, I tell to my clients, I don't recommend this one. No, um in the table I say, okay, this one is good, this one up to your decision, but this one please not don't choose it. It's not too good. So again, it depends on your situation. I cannot recommend to other producers to do the marketing as I do because it might not work.
You're touching on, I guess, the trees have to grow. So that's a lot to do with the terroir you select, your ability to farm, right? The terroir that you elect or you've been given. And then obviously understanding the product. Panamanians have seemed to travel a good bit too to kind of understand what's going on with coffee. It seems more coffee focused, the product of coffee, and then secondarily, it seems kind of market focused. How can I promote better? How can I sell better? I think it's kind of interesting that you're talking about how difficult it is to market and sell coffee because a lot of producers, the kind of person that is attracted to becoming a coffee producer isn't necessarily attracted to being a salesman. I don't think it's the same profile.
No, it's not, and that might be part of the problem uh, that coffee was not sustainable in the past because we focus into something, and if it's only producing, it's barely sustainable. You need to focus in the whole thing, and we will have limits. Like we will not be experts on everything, but at least have a little idea. Like for example, the Nuguo lots. There are many Nuguo lots every year. Why? Because I don't mix unless it's required. Like BOP requires certain amount, so I need to mix my lots to make the total amount. But if I would mix, I would have an average lot of Nuguo. It might be still good, but it's not as good as the best one. If I have clients that pay for the quality, I get better income if I sell them separately than not. And if you say in other words, it's like, oh, it's why you do that? If you say the one of the keys of Nugo is that we don't mix. That sounds like no, I cannot be, but it's part of it. It's part of it. Exclusivity. Clients that are paying so much for a coffee, sometimes they want exclusivity. They are not paying only for the coffee, not even only for the experience. Because I think we in Geisha, we sell a sensorial experience that is unique and related to the terroir and related to the work of the farmer. But some of them, they are not only buying those two things. If a farmer is into specialty coffee, I recommend to understand a little bit of the market. Producing coffee at high elevations don't, eh, it's expensive. So you need to sell at more expensive prices to be able to be sustainable economically. And that's only possible if you offer the client something else, an experience. So if we need to keep one thing into the product that we offer, it needs to be the sensorial experience. It needs to be unique. It needs to reflect the work of people, the life, the culture. It can't be a simple beverage. It can be something without soul. If at some point they start making a specialty coffee in the labs, because those are molecules. At some point, somebody might be able to join the right molecules to each other in the right way at the right temperature, and right everything, but it will still not have soul. And I know this, what I'm saying is I was gonna say a word that I shouldn't, but it's not just talking. It's not. It's. I feel that. I feel that, and I'm sure that in the world there are people that feel that, and it's our life, and we wanna live it as we feel. So if we wanna keep growing this crazy difficult coffee, to be able to get the best we can into a cup of our clients so that they can enjoy. And at the same time, me personally, I need to do this. I need to make the consumer feel that I gave my best into that cup. It's not only about the cup tasting good, but it's about that I did my best for that to happen. And it's always difficult because it's a cup, it's a liquid in front of the client. So I always tell to my clients, my dream is that everyone can come to Nuguo and drink Nuguo here in the farm so that they can get the whole experience. I'm not trying to sell a beverage. I'm trying to sell an experience. And if I can get involved as many senses as possible, the more senses, the better. Yeah.
Yeah, there is something beautiful about that. As you're kind of walking through this, I love I mean, it's almost poetic. The kind of the portrait you're painting of the whole experience of growing coffee. I do know that there's people out there that would say, well, you know, it's Panama. They got lucky. I can't be Panama and Colombia, or how, those prices are outrageous, or on and on and on, right? This kind of idea that, I guess, underlying that, well, you've been given Panama, so the rest is easy, right? And I'm sure you've heard people say things like that to you, other coffee producers. How do you respond? How do you respond to that sort of idea after you have kind of gone through all these challenges and all this work to make the best cup of coffee possible?
Yeah. The point is that I kind of agree with them, because if I would have gone through all these challenges in other terroir, I still wouldn't be able to get Nugo. But I'm sure some people can. Not me. I was blessed, and I was born into the coffee growing area, not there, but family. And I love the nature. That helps, because if you hate animals and trees, you will be suffering every time you go to Nugo. I love mud. I love the rain. People say, "Oh, are you gonna get wet?" I get wet every time I get a shower. So I don't care if it's from the sky or from the shower. I just love it. My phone and my documents doesn't love it too much, but but I love being into the jungle. So in that part, they are right. They are right. We are blessed. that doesn't mean that they cannot move toward founding their blessed spot. And I think some of them are doing. Bolivia, the best coffee out of Panama that I have tried is a Bolivian one. Colombia, I have tried really, really good, and you can see internationally. It has been longer the travel for them. It has been shorter. We definitely need to recognize that we have had a speed up process and we are already there. But I think Ethiopia, Ethiopia is the perfect case. They has been blessed also, but they need to change something, which I don't know. What is it? Because if I would know, I would go travel there and talk to every one of them and tell them, okay, you need to do this and this and that. But the cup is there. I don't know what are they missing. Maybe maybe the right platform like M-Cultivo, or maybe the right connections to, I don't know, easiness of visiting the country, maybe. So yeah, they are right, but that doesn't mean that they cannot be Panama, but they can be Huila, they can be Huehuetenango, they can be, I don't know, Cotobruz, they can be there also.
Do you feel pressure to kind of steward that blessing into the future? I know you've talked about your grandfather in the past and sort of the work that he had done to sort of put your family on this track of being amazing coffee producers. Is that something you think about often, or is that something just sort of you live out in kind of gratitude in some way?
I do live in gratitude. And now that I have kids, I think about trying to do the same with my kids. It's not easy, um, because when you leave your house in David at 5 a.m. and you go to Nuguo, there is no restaurant or supermarket or something. There is water in the streams. There is not too many fruits in the high elevation forest. So what I'm trying to say, that's not sustainable, because you will damage your body to to be able to work on those situations. So nowadays, if I take my kid, we need to be sure that we bring breakfast for whenever he wakes up in the car, and the lunch and the dinner. So if I have a long day and I know that I have many tasks, I limit myself to taking one of them with me. So I am
Mm.
limiting the possibility of him or her. I have kids and daughters and sons, getting in love with the terroir very young. So I need to still think about that. Living in the farm is attractive, but then the schools in which we want them to be are here in the bit. The hospitals are in the bit. And in that part, Boquete has been better because they are closer to the bit. Not only in Boquete, but in Renacimiento and Volcan, most of the successful growers that I like their coffee do live either in their farms or very near. Living
Mm.
away, it's harder. It's harder. Um, but yeah, I'm for your question, I live with gratefulness and trying to replicate the experience, the good parts of the experience that they offered me when I was a kid.
And do you see that same kind of experience occurring with your own kids now? Are you able to pass that on, or have the chimes changed so much? Everybody's got cell phones and video games and all this kinds of stuff as kids. You're worried about screen time. You're worried about all these things. I mean, are you seeing the same sort of experiences you had as a kid resonate with your kids?
Not exactly the same, but in a different sense. The same direction or or objective. The objective is that they can have a industry, a job, a place where they enjoy doing what they do in their life. And in that sense, coffee is very flexible, because if they wanna be in the tailing part, they can; in the agricultural part, the environmental part, in the human resources part. Research can be done in different aspects. So we have a very wide, uh, um, a lot of topics where they can match and find their spot. So I hope they will. If not, it's okay. Um, but it's a beautiful life to be involved in.
It sounds like you need sales and marketing. One of your kids needs to be very good at sales and marketing, and then it'll make your job a lot easier, right?
Yeah.
So I do want to talk a little bit about Nugo itself, because I've heard two versions of this story, Pocho. So not specifically about Nugo, but about growing geisha. So one version is sort of high altitude geisha and the stress on the geisha plant from rocky soils and high altitude is actually helpful in bringing out some of these more intense floral flavors that you'd expect from geisha, right? The other version of the story that I've also heard is geisha is a very delicate plant. Do not put it under stress. Like, stress is a bad thing. It needs to be a very happy plant, and a happy plant will provide happy fruit, which will be happy, tasty coffee. It sounds like Nugo is in a fairly stressful environment as far as trees, plants, terroir go. Can you talk a little bit about that?
In the past, I was convinced of the stress version. Um, in part, I thought of that because when I have little product, I have, let's say, above 94. I have 10% of coffees above 94 when I produce 300 kilos. But when I produce 1,000 kilos, I have 5%. So I say, oh, I have less percent of top coffees when I produce more. So it's good to produce less, and usually I produce less when the environment has been more difficult for the plant. There go the stress, the difficulty makes it harder, and that's kind of true. I think I have no evidence, but from a farmer point, it's better to have a big production, because 5% of 1,000 is 50, and 10% of 300 is 30. So I have more kilos above 94 if I produce more, and I am able to spot the ones that are good. Even if it's a less percentage, I will have more. I think there are limits. If the plant is too having too much fruit, it will be difficult for her to nurture correctly every grain. But at the same time, if the plant is suffering too much, it will be hard for her to put anything into the cherries. She will try as hard as possible. So if she can make it, it will be a hell of a fruit. But how many fruits? And would she be able to? Those two questions. After, also another aspect is, will she die in the next year? Because sometimes they make such an effort, either for having too much fruits into there, or because they are too sick and they try the last effort to ripen the fruit, and they die the next year. So it's more sustainable to be able to protect them from too much stress. Now, the altitude definitely makes a better cup for me. Like, if you give me a cup of coffee that is higher altitude, I will appreciate it better. And many clients agree with me on the cup, not on the concept of higher altitude, but when I see the results, it's related. Not all. My first client, Timothy Hill, he used to work in counterculture, so my first client's culture company also. He prefers 1850 more or less, not because he told me, but because when I sent him samples, I realized that he always was choosing the 1850s. Maybe the genetic that I have on that area is different from the high altitude. So many reasons can be, but at the end, if I need to make a hypothesis, I would say the tree needs to be happy in a difficult uh, environment. So it's not about making him suffer. It's about him being in that environment. If he can be happy, it's even better. Uh, yeah.
That's a very difficult thing to achieve, I would guess. Easy to say, but difficult
Mhm.
to have a happy plant in a difficult environment and walking that tightrope. Do you feel that Nugo as a farm, as a kind of geography, terroir is able to consistently achieve that? Is that what has kind of made Nugo special is happy plants in a difficult environment?
No, not at all. Um, we have happy plants. I have plants that haven't received nothing of agrochemical products, not even organic. It's not organic. It's not conventional. It's not nothing. It's just growing there, and it's happy. It's amazing. It's only a quarter hectares, and it produces like 10 kilos. It's not the best crop of Nugo, uh, but it's happy without any product. The rest of Nugo, I recently eliminated the chemical products from the last part that I still used to use, because people thinks that is good because it's organic. Conventional coffee can taste better than organic, but I'm convinced to go towards the environmental friendly. So the last part that was still using conventional, it's now like 1.5 years, but everything gets diseased. And some years it produce a lot, and some years it produce a little bit. Every year it gets disease. So it's those are not too happy, I think. There is some areas that they die and die again, and we plant again and die again. It's been 19 years struggling. The oldest plant, the lastest time that we planted was like 3 years ago. Those plants are still alive, and we are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. Now I think we have the technique to make it happen. It's also related to a advice that Ratibor told me. If you get a very bad land that you now wants to make into coffee, let it get other species, like let it grow along other things, whatever grows there, for as many years as possible until you have a good environment. Don't fight with it, because you will either lose a lot of money and put a lot of chemicals and things in the ground, or you will lose the plant. If you want to be very friendly and and grow with the nature. Let the nature, that part, he didn't say as I'm saying that, but that's what I understood. I don't know if he meant that, but let the nature make the work. Let the nature grow, fix, because many of these farms used to be cow, so that there are no trees, so we are letting things grow back. Also, another aspect of having a top year and a bottom year, not in top quality, but in amount of production, I think has to do with the slowness of the process. Everyone says, yeah, in the high altitude, the cherry ripes slower, but nobody explains how come that we have um, a, a harvest every year, just as the lower elevation does, if the lower elevation does faster, how the year is enough for us to have a harvest? And I think the answer is that at some point we don't have time to have a harvest per year. So when the tree needs to be flowering and is still very charged with cherries that are ripening, the flowering is less effective or less amount. So the next year you will have less cherry. But in that year, when it needs to flower, it will be very free because very little production. So it will have more flowers and the cycle back. The biannuality in the high altitude is very strong. But also, if statistically you will have a sample that have some plants in which 2024 was the big year, 25 the low, 26 the high, and other plants are vice versa, you will compensate. I will think so. But they kind of synchronize. So the whole farm went down. I think it has to do also with the environmental conditions of each year. And and also other farms, not only Nugo, but other farms also decreased. So it's not about how I manage Nugo. It's not about how they manage Nugo. It's not only about the biannuality, but it's about also the environmental conditions of each year. So the happiness and the difficulties are a complex, very, very complex thing to talk about.
You hear that with, wine a lot, and I don't know if you hear it as much with coffee. Maybe you should, but you do hear, oh well, it was a good harvest for Cabernet and Napa Valley or Pinots in Oregon or Malbecs in Argentina, right? 2023 was a good year, that sort of thing. I feel like you don't hear that much in the same way in coffee. But I did want to touch on, you made a good effort to kind of say, okay, there are things that I'm doing, right? That I can help my farm to be a better farm, my coffee to be better coffee. But there's also just sort of like a flow of this river downstream. So nature has to be able to do its thing. It has to be able to grow what it would like to grow in that area to create soil conditions that are healthy soil conditions, have the microbiology in those soil to do that, and then the year, the weather, the other factors in the area. You kind of have to control for all of that and say, okay, well, if everybody had a bad year in Boquete or had everybody had a bad year in Panama, then maybe it wasn't something wrong I did, and I shouldn't adjust every single variable in order to make next year the best year. But I guess a lot of that you don't know in the moment, right? You sort of know that in hindsight. You have to be looking back kind of 6 months, a year. How important is it that you sort of have years of experience doing this? I mean, how much data do you need or how much experience do you need before you kind of become a good coffee producer, right?
There are two different routes you can achieve that. The more efficient route is studying in agronomy, agronomy
Yeah.
engineering. Um, in the family, we haven't done that. No, none of us. My father is civil engineer. I am civil engineer. In some other families, neither. Jose Lutrell is civil engineer. Edwin Santa Maria is civil engineer. And Wilford Lamasto is civil engineer. So maybe you need to study civil. No, I'm kidding. So agronomy will help you learn fast during your studies. That will make a big part of it. But then the field experience is important. My father on that, he didn't look for a perfect production because it's expensive to do a perfect production, but he looked for the better cost benefit proportion, which is having a farm in conditions that are not perfect. If you want to have a farm that every plant is perfect, you will be losing money. If you take into account everything, because the land in Panama is expensive and the human resources are expensive, the balance of the benefit cost is different than in other countries where maybe the land is cheaper or I don't know. So on that part, I would say 10 years is reasonable. In 10 years, you should have a quite good idea of how to do things in your farm. Again, if you did study that, maybe you have your 5 years of university and then in 2 years you hit the spot. For example, things that would take long is the shade. If you think that the best shade for your area is guava because the study says so and the neighbor has guava and you plant guava and it grows and in 4 years you have 4 meters altitude that you need, for example, and you realize it's not as good as you thought. It can happen, it might happen. So then you will have a delay in 4 years because now you need to start thinking about which shade should you have planned. Or you can go back and then, okay, I'm not gonna decide, I'm gonna plant three different varieties and then I will look which one is behaving better and then I will cut. Or you follow the rules of the books and you do everything as it's said in the books, it should work, but you will not innovate. You will not go further. So if the book says you need to use insecticide, you will use insecticide and you will not try better things. And that for me is not an option because I get bored easily. So doing everything that is already settled. I tell my father, but if we don't find out who will, everyone is comfortable because the commercial part, they want to sell whatever they sell. So they do research, but they do research that support their product.
Right.
That that leaves us in a stagnation, kind of. It's slow growing in their style. So if we want change, the faster change in our farm, we need to try and lose. I lose a lot of plants and money and things trying different options. So if you're doing things as I am, and there is no time limit, you will always be trying different things. But I am already comfortable. It's been 10 years in specialty and the background of when I was a kid of seeing how they do things. But yeah, those 10 years, in those 10 years, I prefer good shade. We use drones, fertilizers that are slowly going into the soil, good coverage. I don't use herbicide. I prefer to lose part of the nutrition of the fertilizer I'm putting than having a bare soil. That's my style. A good advice would be if you are following one style, please don't do a Frankenstein. Sometimes some things works if they are together with these other things. But don't choose the insecticide from here and this type of ground coverage from here and this type of shade. It might not work. Even if they work with other styles, they might not work together. So if you are going in one direction, make sure that everything that you do kind of makes sense with each other.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Nugo has definitely developed its own style. And I do want to talk just briefly or mention briefly that big announcement that you'll be in the Dubai coffee auction this year. So we've talked, we kind of hinted at this a little bit over the episode, but we talked about this idea that in order to get into a competition environment, usually you would have to blend Finca Nugo coffees together in order to reach the right quantity and
Yeah.
create the right coffees. And those coffees can be incredible. There's no doubt about that. But this is sort of a unique experience for you, right? I mean, getting involved in an auction that has, Colombia and Bolivia and Brazil and Ethiopia and Yemen and on and on and on, right? We've got so many great producers, so many great countries involved in this, including yourself. But you're also able to select a specific lot. Is that right? For this auction
Well,
and not have to do blending because the quantity doesn't have to reach a certain
yeah,
objective.
Yeah, not only not blending, but I'm not putting the whole lot. I'm choosing within the lot the grains that are a certain weight. So I'm still working on it. I don't know if when you release, I will already be sending the coffee, but it's a lot of work, and my wife and Arnaldo, who is my right and left hands, they think I'm crazy, but I think I'm not going to a new episode of Nugo, to a new experience of a non-scab auction with something okay, with something that some other coffee growers will have there. So we are choosing a grain by grain.
And then it's and tell us a little bit about the lot. So it's a washed coffee, right? It's a washed geisha. Is that right?
Uh-huh. It's a wash geisha.
And
Our wash sometimes has a little bit of mucilage because we have very rudimentary timing, and we don't control temperature during the fermentation for washing. So we just base it on the filling. And if the worker feels it's already rough, he can wash it. And the final product, we don't check how well he washed it. So it has a little bit of mucilage, but it's not honey. It's definitely not honey.
and what kind of what tasting notes can people expect out of kind of a Finca Nugo washed geisha?
The thing that I appreciate of the good lots of Nugo is that the complexity. So I'm a big complexity fan. Florals are what has made famous Panama Geisha. And I have a friend, Diego, from Santos Cafe, that he's always looking at me like, oh my God, because I don't give too many points or too much appreciation to the florality itself. For me, it needs to be complex. Even the florality needs to be complex. So you will be feeling the jasmine, tea, chamomile on the florality. Then you will be able to the stone fruits, to feel the stone fruits. I think that's the base. And depending on your perception, because I have learned that my perception of some fruits are different than others, you might be able to taste lavender. You might be able to taste some grapes. I think those are the safe ones. Yeah, yeah.
Well, I can't
So
wait to try it. It sounds It sounds absolutely incredible, and I I just appreciate your willingness to kind of enter this auction with all these other producers and be involved, and it's just exciting. I think we have an incredible lineup, and just to have these coffees on a table, on a single table, is going to be epic. So thank you. Yeah, just thank you for your contribution to that. Thanks for your willingness to also be in this podcast episode, be have this conversation, and for your contributions just to Panamanian coffee, to the world of coffee. I mean, 10 years dedication to it, and the elite level of coffees that you've been able to produce over that time period have left an imprint. So just thank you so much for that, Pocho. And I can't wait to see you. I hope I get to see you as well in October for World of Coffee Panama.
oh yeah, yeah.
I'd love to experience drinking your coffee on the farm, as you so eloquently put it.
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, we have a very little production next year. Hopefully 200 kilos, but maybe 100. But I will definitely have a cup for you and for everyone that wants to visit our booth in Walk 2026. We will be here not really to sell, because we are sold out, but to be at your order, to make you feel comfortable visiting Panama, so that you can have good memories of Panama, not in the taste and in the relationships with the Panamanians. That's what my intention to be in there is to make you have a good time. A good time. Yeah.
Well, it is a full sensorial experience, as they say. I mean, everything. So it does lead to a good time, but it's impressionable. So, well, thank you so much, Pocho. Finca Nugo will be, and by the time this episode comes out, I think this will either be the announcement or is the the announcement has already been made. But Finco Nugo will be in the Dubai coffee auction by DMCC happening in January, live in Dubai. Register bid at mcultivo.com. You'll find a link to the auction website. It's a beautiful website. We probably at that point will have sold out via of sample sets, but you can also try and buy a sample set or ping us for that. If not, we will see you in Dubai, all of you who are joining us, and we will be ready to accept your bids for Pocho's fantastic Finca Nugo washed geisha coffee. Thank you again, Pocho, and we will talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. Thank you, David. Bye bye.